So, as longtime fans of this channel knows, Yu Yu Hakusho is one of my favorite animes, or my favorite anime, depending on which mood I'm in, right? And Kurama is one of my favorite Yu Yu Hakusho characters, mainly because his powers come from the Nine-Tails Fox, nicknamed Kurama, or named Kurama, depending on what fiction or Japanese folklore you're reading. Plus, dogs are my favorite animals, and foxes are a type of dog. Second of all, my second favorite reason for Kurama being one of my favorite characters is because I like the colors red and purple, and his hair is red like mine, and he has a purple outfit. And obviously, I have to make a disclaimer: no Diddy, no homo, ayo, pause. I do not like the girly version of purple. I like the unisex version of purple because it was my dead grandma's favorite color. I don't want anybody coming into the comment section saying I am a homosexual for liking the color purple. And the third part slash color of Kurama's color scheme is green because plants are green and he controls plants. So the third color of Kurama's color scheme is green for that reason. As I've just stated, and green is one of my favorite colors. It's my third favorite color. My first favorite color is red, FYI. And third of all, my third favorite reason for liking Kurama is the fact he's one of the best written characters, and he's the sidekick to Hiei, who is my favorite Yu Yu Hakusho character, who inspired Sasuke, who's one of my favorite Naruto characters. So I do fuck with this dude's profile pic. His name is Crown of Roses, or her name is, or its name. Obviously, Crown of Roses has the body of a male because Crown of Roses watches Naruto and watches Yu Yu Hakusho, which majority of Naruto and Yu Yu Hakusho fans have the body of a male. But Crown of Roses isn't a man, but Crown of Roses has the brain of a woman, like Kurama. Because, first of all, Crown of Roses is attracted to Tobirama, which is a man. He even calls Tobirama his number one ninja hubby and puts kissy faces emojis and heart emojis next to Tobirama. And obviously, in order for you to be attracted to men, you have to have the brain of a female. The second reason why Crown of Roses isn't a male, because Crown of Roses has Kurama as its profile pic. And as we know, because majority of my audience are anime fans and Yu Yu Hakusho is an anime, Kurama is a bisexual coded character that goes both ways. Which means Crown of Roses is a male that only goes one way, and that's to men. And if you go both ways, that means you're gay. And if you like men, that means you're gay. Obviously, most of the time, I wouldn't say there's nothing wrong with being gay, unless you're a gay person and you're a bad person, which I'm going to explain why Crown of Roses and majority of Tobirama fans are bad people. So, as my non black friends would say, such as Crown of Roses, who used to be one, things were going swell yesterday, but then they stopped going swell when I had some personal stuff going on that I won't mention on YouTube. In Crown of Roses, Bussy started bleeding at that time of the month. Mainly because I said that Tobirama had more flaws than Crown of Roses did. So Crown of Roses' argument was that Tobirama was barely flawed. And my argument is that Tobirama is very flawed as a character, right? And his counter argument to my argument was that Danzo segregated the Uchiha, Tobirama didn't. No, Tobirama did segregate the Uchiha. You can read the manga and watch the anime. It literally says that those were the words written by Kishimoto and resaid by the voice actors who worked for Kishimoto, who is the creator of Naruto. Well, technically co-creator because the editor and the writer slash artist for the manga makes the mangas, not just the writer and the artist. So, in order for Crown of Roses to back up his false counter argument, which is Tobirama didn't segregate the Uchiha, which he did, is stated in multiple versions of the series, right? In order to counter his bad counter argument slash false counter argument that Tobirama segregated the Uchiha, Crown of Roses states Danzo would have segregated the Uchiha because Danzo's a worse person than Tobirama. Okay, Danzo's a worse person than Tobirama because he did the Uchiha massacre opposed to segregating them. So Danzo basically did a clan rally opposed to Tobirama who did segregation. Except the problem with that argument of Tobirama being a bad or a flawed person compared to Danzo who's worse, which is an evil slash pure evil person, is that Donzo's pure evil actions are a result of Tobirama's bad slash flawed actions, which was making Hiruzen the third Hokage after Tobirama's death, who was the second Hokage. And then what Hiruzen did, because Hiruzen is the sleepy Joe Biden of Naruto, he's literally senile all the time and does not want any smoke except when he does want that smoke, which is when he wants to invade other countries. Now I'm gonna put my comment, which debunked Crown of Roses' first comment on my Tobirama video, and I'm gonna say what I said in that comment while it's up on screen. Or city states like the Rain Village to gain resources, which is imperialism and theft and serial killing, by the way. In case you did not know, Crown of Roses, since you're an expert on who's bad and who's evil and who's worse than bad, you're not a therapist, and if you are, you need to be fired immediately, if not sooner, for what you just said. But basically, Hiruzen went on, since he is senile and doesn't want to do his work as Hokage, which is to be the governor slash mayor of a city state, which is a village. Well, not a village. It's technically not a village, but it's called a village in the Naruto world. So it's a village and not a village. He gets Danzo to be a politician, but Danzo's his best friend who's jealous of everybody, including the Uchiha. And Danzo does the Uchiha massacre after Tobirama's death, which was when Hiruzen became a third Hokage. So Hiruzen made Danzo a politician, which that's Tobirama's fault, because Tobirama knew Hiruzen personally, and he most likely knew that Hiruzen was lazy, but he was obviously, having a feeling of anxiety because he knew he was about to die, and just made the person with the most courage the third Hokage. And yes, Hiruzen was the most courageous person, but he was not the smartest person to be third Hokage, which me and Crown of Roses did agree on. But just because somebody doesn't directly cause an action and they indirectly cause it, that doesn't mean they're not guilty. Was Tobirama knew how lazy Hiruzen is and how trusting Hiruzen is. Hiruzen literally flashes back multiple times and states he knew Tobirama personally. Like, how do you think he learned water style and learned what the FTG was, even though he did not know how to use the FTG technique correctly, even though in the manga and anime they state Hiruzen knows how to use it. So if there was a hypothetical alternate dimension in Naruto, which was Crown of Roses Infinite Tsukiyomi slash Tobirama's Puff Daddy's Flavor Camp, where Tobirama did not segregate the Uchiha, in that timeline, which is the same as the normal main Naruto timeline, Tobirama made Hiruzen third Hokage, and Hiruzen made Danzo a politician slash do the Uchiha massacre, which is literally the Naruto equivalent of a clan rally, which is racist. So it's still Tobirama's fault that Donzo did what he did because he knew Hiruzen personally, and he knew Hiruzen was gonna get Donzo to do his job for him. But when Tobirama made Hiruzen third Hokage, he obviously was. If you look at you're courageous like Hiruzen, which is a good quality. That does not mean Hiruzen, all of his qualities are good. Just because you have one good quality, Hiruzen, which is being courageous, does not mean he doesn't have the bad quality of being lazy. So it's Tobirama's fault Donzo did the Uchiha massacre. Plus, Tobirama is Donzo's teacher. So Donzo learned how to be racist from somewhere. So this is a disclaimer and FYI for ignorant black people, because there are some black people who are ignorant as non-black, such as Crown of Roses. Now I'm gonna assume Crown of Roses is white, because majority of my friends who have watched Yu Yu Hakusho are white. Majority of my black friends, except for two, have not watched Yu Yu Hakusho because they've heard, oh, Naruto and Hunter x Hunter are based off Yu Yu Hakusho. So what's the point? So what's the point of me watching Yu Yu Hakusho? And I can watch Naruto. And honestly, a lot of black people are right, because that's killing two birds with one stone. I gotta run on CP time 2 on this one. But back to the topic, that's besides the point. A lot of black people think when I say Uchiha clan and clan rally, I mean the same thing. No, when I say clan rally, I mean clan with a K, as in the racist cult slash hate group slash terrorist that existed in the US a long time ago and barely exists now in certain states that are majority or half black or have a large black population, because we're not playing that nowadays as we've gotten tired. When I say Uchiha clan, I mean clan with a C, as in a tribe or a family. And yes, if you go to Africa, there are tribes of black people in Africa, and tribe and clan with a C mean the same thing. So Crown of Roses' only definition of racism is a hate crime, which is when you attack somebody verbally by insulting them to the point that stress makes them die of a heart attack or a stroke, or when you attack somebody physically and you kill them either with your hands, which should be registered as weapons, or with a weapon because you think that person's race is inferior. And that's what Donzo did. Donzo believed the Uchiha should be inferior to every other clan or person that is a non-Uchiha, because the Uchiha should not be more powerful than Donzo, because Donzo's a very envious person. Because he's not that popular of a person growing up, and that makes him look bad to other people. Mainly because he's not popular due to being a coward. So Donzo committed a hate crime by eliminating the Uchiha because they were a threat. What Donzo didn't do, he just only eliminated Shisui, but he indirectly had the Uchiha eliminated, but he ordered multiple black ops soldiers, which are the Anbu, he trained to eliminate the Uchiha. So Crown of Roses previously stated Tobirama didn't practice systemic racism, which is when, due to the fact you're racist, you fear that when the group slash race you oppressed gains equal power to you by working 10 times harder than you, that they're gonna oppress you when they gain more power than you and treat you the same way you treated them by torturing them. Systemic racism is created, which an example is making it so black only areas would have worse schools and worse jobs, and white only areas would have the opposite. Obviously, civil rights was created because when systemic racism was legal and it was going on, black people protested and they stopped working, which caused them to most likely not be able to barely afford food, water, shelter, and toiletries, which they needed to live, which they barely could get because they would get paid less than whites due to systemic racism, which resulted in multiple black people dying, right? This is like my grandparents and great grandparents' generation. And civil rights was created because if black people aren't working, white people are not making money, and they own majority of the companies black people working in majority of companies in the US today. Obviously, systemic racism is illegal, and I'm Gen Z. My second argument to Tobirama being a racist is that Tobirama also practices systemic racism, not just by segregating Lucia, which Crown Roses doesn't remember, but by making Lucia the police force, which Crown of Roses does remember. Right? And as we know from being Americans, police slash ICE, which is police for immigrants, they literally police slash enforce the laws on immigrants. And FY to illiterate people like Crown and Roses, policing and enforcing laws is the same exact thing. The words mean the same thing if you hear how they're used and search up the definition, which Crown of Roses clearly can't do, despite the fact he literally is using Google to hop on YouTube instead of using Google to hop onto an online dictionary and Google the definitions of multiple words. He's gotten the definition wrong for I've used and said to him. So me, who is an American, knows the police is very controversial, and most likely Crown of Roses knows that too. But Crown of Roses speaks English, which is a language that's only spoken in majority or half of all Western countries, which America is one of them. And it's even spoken in countries where English isn't their first language, because Western countries where English isn't their first language are allied with America. Unlike the police in America and IRL are hated for being racist and committing hate crimes, the police in the Naruto verse, specifically the Uchiha police force, are hated for the opposite reason. So the Uchiha have PTSD due to the fact most Uchiha are ninjas slash soldiers, right? And when there's a war going on, not as much soldiers are hired, so they have to choose a job. And obviously, if you're an Uchiha and you want to feed your family, you need to feed your family as quick as you can so they don't die of starvation. So you're going to pick the easiest job to get, which is the one Tobirama gave you for free, which does not require you to go to an interview, because he gave you the job without you going to the interview for the job and having to pass a test, which will give them info on all your previous jobs. So you're going to choose that job. Except the problem with that is the job of the police force is good at first, but due to the fact Toby Brown didn't do an interview and give you a test to let the people who run the Uchiha police force slash the village who controls the chief of the Uchiha police force. When I say village, I mean specifically the village's politicians, such as the Hokage and the elders, right? Such as Danzo. But that's besides the point. Basically, now you have PTSD from a war, and now, due to the fact the police force, specifically the Uchiha police force, handle criminals who are more dangerous than normal criminals RL, but this is the fictional Naruto world, right? Your PTSD is increased, and now you're just arresting anybody who looks suspicious, right? Even if they're not suspicious. So now the Uchiha have a reputation of having PTSD, right? So nobody else will hire the Uchiha. On top of that, there's cameras watching the Uchiha. There's cameras literally under the Uchiha's bed, in the Uchiha's underwear drawer, in the Uchiha's bathroom, right? Like, the Uchihas are being watched like a hawk, but everybody thinks they're suspicious because Tobirama said so, and he was the Hokage and he led the village. So yeah, Tobirama purposely made the Uchiha part of the police force so they couldn't gain any political power, because they were unqualified for the job, and he knew due to the fact they had PTSD and they were desperate for any job, they would take the police force job, which was the easiest job for them to get, because on top of it not requiring an application or a test to get into it, the Sharingan can literally detect people's movements before they do the movements, or you see them do the movement, because it's literally seen faster than the normal eye. It's literally seeing you barely move in milliseconds, where a normal eye won't even see you move until after you moved. Specifically in the Naruto verse, was everyone literally moves faster than the eye can see. So the Sharingan makes you overqualified for the job. So most likely the Uchihas are going to get bonuses, but it's a trick to make the Uchiha poor. So yeah, that's the definition of systemic racism. And Crown of Roses is wrong. The Uchiha, did not go through systemic racism by being put on the police force because they didn't complain. But I went through it because, as an example, which if you understand, unlike Crown of Roses, what I'm saying, you don't need to read the example, but he does not understand what I'm saying. So basically, my example was that systemic racism still barely happens. As an example, there were people that would try and bully me who weren't black. I would defend myself from them, right? And then I almost got suspended and I had to switch schools and I graduated at a different school, which took time off of my education because I had to find a school, and it's not easy to do because you have to drive to different places, read a GPS and a map to drive if the GPS is not working and telling you where to go due to technical difficulties. On top of it, you have to sign a lot of paperwork, and they have to look at records and stuff to make sure you're not a bad person, you're not causing trouble. But these same white students that are bullies who tried to bully me, and when I defended myself by fighting back against them, I got in trouble. Despite the fact they had bad grades, they got F's, D's, that suddenly turned into an A by the teacher. They got to pass for free. So systemic racism does still exist. You would ask, why don't you not go to a school with white people and go to a school with blacks? Well, the reason I went to school with whites and non-blacks such as Eris because bad black people exist too, and the schools in black areas, even if the black kids aren't bad people, which kids are cruel, black kids and white kids. You know, let's say there were good black kids at the black schools I went to, which I'll say half of them, 25% of them was good. Same thing with the white kids at the white schools, right? The black schools have less funding than the white schools in terms of the curriculum. They have less advanced classes, so you're not learning as much. On top of that, it is true, black students barely and usually don't commit school shootings because, unlike a lot of white kids, black parents are more disciplinarian. So, a black kid does not want to shoot up a school because they're scared of getting in trouble, unlike white kids. But, that's a double-edged sword because where the white schools are made, they're made in, areas that are safe. They pick the most run-down ghettos area to make a black school. So, yeah, there may be less school shootings in the black schools, but when you walk out of there, it's dangerous. So, it's the opposite. So, yeah, I had to go from black schools to white schools. But according to Crown of Roses, I did not go through systemic racism, even though I did, according to the definition in multiple real life and online dictionaries, because I didn't complain that I went through it. I did not go through it, which, first of all, that's false. The reason I didn't complain is because I had no choice. Because if I went to another school, they would have probably just suspended me for defending myself. There was no me getting out of it from getting help from a two good couple teachers and two good couple family members, which is my debunk, which I stated during my first comment slash response slash debunk to Crown of Roses' first comment. Then Crown of Roses replied. So Crown of Roses said, I can't stand when you people slash people like you, which mean the same thing, which means black people. It's when a non-black person or a black person who's a coon slash a traitorous black, is saying they don't like black people. So it's literally the equivalent to a white person calling a black a nigger, right? Can't win an argument without using the slavery card. So this dude said, I'm using the fact my ancestors went through slavery as an excuse to win the argument. First of all, no, I'm not doing that. And even if I did, I would be wrong because I can't do that. I wasn't in slavery. I can't say, oh, my ancestor went through slavery, so I'm entitled for you to let me win this argument because of pity. No, I mentioned slavery to explain why systemic racism still is. I mentioned the fact I went through systemic racism and didn't complain about it, which is a reason why Crown of Roses was wrong by saying, as a person that never went through systemic racism like me, that you can't go through systemic racism if you didn't complain about it. Which you can't complain about, but your two options are one, don't complain about it, get temporarily kicked out, come back and get your high school diploma, and on top of that, deal with systemic racism your whole life. Or your second option too, which is to complain about it, get kicked out, go to another school, then you're permanently banned for defending yourself if you go through it, right? And I'm not about to sit here and act like, oh, you should let me win the argument because I go through systemic racism and you don't, because as a black person, I don't know what it's like to fear that my school or campus I go to may get shot up, or majority of the men in my community commit SA against minors. That's messed up, bro. So, white people have it harder on some stuff too. Even though black people have it harder with, majority of financial things and social things though. On top of that, Crown of Roses says he doesn't understand what the hell my response was and can't read it because I didn't use proper English. I use slang and abbreviations, which is a part of Black American English accent, and he would have understood it if I used proper English slash the white American English accent, which is not proper English because actually the proper way English is supposed to be used is from England, which is either the city or the state where English comes from, thus, which is the reason why English and English sound similar. I'm positive it's a city or a state inside the UK. I know it's inside the UK, but I don't know if it's a city or a state. But, that's where English obviously is derived from. And, if Crown of Roses wants to tell me to speak proper English, you need to be typing like you're Gordon Ramsay or Idris Elba or Franklin from Snowfall. My final response slash debunk, which I'm gonna say and put up on screen to Crown of Roses, is that you know white American English may be the gold standard in America, but it's white America and specifically white people in America used to be the majority in the country. So majority of people who are non-white, excluding black people, have used the white American accent slash dialect as default. But obviously it's not anymore because majority of the country is not white. It's basically 50-50 headed toward more brown and black than white. But that's besides the point. Basically, know what's proper. Crown of Roses, maybe as a man you shouldn't say another man's your husband, which that's called being a faggot, a faggot, and you shouldn't say Tobirama's your husband because, no man can create a kid from getting their cheeks absolutely pounded and clapped, spreading, that Tobirama pussy. You can't, insert your thingamajig into, Tobirama's pussy and think you're finna have a kid, bro. A man and a woman have to have a kid together in order to repopulate the human race, because if the human race is not repopulated, then what'll happen? All humans get old, animals and bugs will eat all our corpses or eat us while we're becoming corpses. On top of that, humans are social creatures and we need to be straight and have kids because more kids means more people. And obviously, being a social creature requires you have more people around, including kids, to make you happy. Because if you don't have kids, you're gonna die from being depressed. And if any of my viewers were born infertile, you can adopt. There's plenty of deadbeat fathers and mothers. You can adopt their children. So, you may want to think who you say is improper, while you're spreading them cheeks to Daddy Tobirama.